please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to PwC and CNBC-TV18 present GST Decoded 1 year on. I'm Ridu Bhandari. 1st of July 2017 was indeed a historic day for India as the country ushered in one of the largest and the most awaited economic reforms since independence, the goods and services tax. Despite initial hiccups on the implementation front and some debate on proposed tax rates, over the course of the last 1 year, it's safe to say the government did manage to iron out some of the challenges that industry was faced with and made one nation, one tax a reality. Today, almost a year on after the GST rollout, we've gathered here to look back at the momentous year gone by, the hits and the misses, and to draft a roadmap for the future. I urge all of you to participate in the conversations tonight here in person and on social media using the hashtag GST@ONE, that's hashtag GST@ONE. And now let's set the context for today's discussions through a short audio-visual.
1 year on since India ushered in one of its boldest economic reforms. 1 year on since India became a one nation, one tax economy. 1 year on has GST achieved what it started out to deliver. The GST rollout is a move towards further formalization of the economy. While the tax base has widened, the implementation has had its teething trouble. The GST Council has been flexible and has brought in changes to rates and rules to make the transition smoother. With an average monthly tax collection of 90,000 crore rupees since the rollout, hopes are being pinned on anti-evasion measures like the e-way bill and easier compliance to add to the government's kitty. With an anti-profiteering law in place and a multi-rate structure, the inflationary impact of GST has been kept in check. As we close in on the first anniversary of the GST rollout, all eyes are now on the next phase. Will the Authority for Advanced Rulings synchronize the legal decision-making framework? With rising crude prices, will petroleum products be included in the GST net? Will real estate and electricity come under the GST fold? Will a simplified return form be a reality this year? Will we hit a consistent revenue run rate of 1 lakh crore rupees? With one eye on the year gone by and one eye on the future, join us for an invigorating discussion as stalwarts from industry, state finance ministers and central government leadership converge. CNBC-TV18 and PwC present GST Decoded 1 year on.
GST Decoded 1 year on, that's the theme for this evening. So let's kick off with the first panel tonight. We have the pleasure of being joined by finance ministers from various states to present pan-India experiences and expectations. Please welcome Movin Godino, Minister of Panchayat, Goa. Sir, can we have you up here, please? Dr. T.M. Thomas Isaac, Finance Minister, Kerala. Manpreet Singh Badal, Finance Minister of Punjab, who will be joining us live from Chandigarh. And Mahendra Singh, Member, GST, Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. And to moderate this session, I'd like to hand it over to CNBC-TV18's Managing Editor, Shireen Bhan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us here for the CNBC-TV18 PwC GST Decoded Conclave. My many thanks to our guests here who join us this evening to discuss the year that's gone by as well as what we can expect for GST on the road ahead. Thank you very much, Mr. Badal, for joining us from Chandigarh. I know you were meant to be here, but unfortunately you couldn't join us in person here in Delhi, but appreciate you joining us here from Chandigarh. Mr. Isaac, thank you for coming all the way down from Kerala to be with us here today. And Mr. Godino, appreciate you coming down from Goa to join us here at the GST Conclave. I know Mr. Singh has also arrived from the Northeast early this morning, so we appreciate your presence here at our conclave as well. So let me kick things off, and Mr. Isaac, let me start by asking you, sir, one of the achievements of this year that we've seen is that politics, while may play out outside, at the level of the GST Council, politics has been kept aside. There has not been a single occasion, the 27 meetings of the GST Council, where there has been a vote. All decisions have been taken unanimously. This is a mechanism that has given India hope that a federal structure can in fact work, can in fact deliver. What has been the experience on the GST Council, sir?
I think that is the best of the lot.
That's the best, is it?
In the sense, we in the GST Councils have very different position on many issues. And we have evolved a method of consensus decision making. There is a give and take. But that doesn't deter me from having my criticism against the GST structure, and even more forcibly, the experience during the first year. It has been a rather a disappointment to me.
Okay.
What we set out, we have very far away from that. To start with, there has been very significant reduction in the incidence of tax rate, something like 40% on the average. But that is not reflected in the prices.
Okay.
The ordinary people of India has not drawn any advantage from GST. So that is the one major issue.
Okay.
Secondly, of course, there are clauses in the law, anti-profiteering clause, etc., but they have proved to be very ineffective.
Okay.
Secondly, you must accept the small-scale sector and organized sector. They're in deep trouble. Of course, a concession has been made in raising the threshold of the presumptive tax level. But nevertheless, once you want to trade with the organized sector, you have to come into the GST. And they would lose the kind of comparative advantage they used to have in the pre-GST period.
Okay.
And there has been, we cannot do anything within the tax system, but our outside direct support systems for the SME sector has to be improved, and there has been no signs of that.
Okay. But so you made several points there. You're saying that overall, this experience in the past 1 year has been a disappointment. Your biggest concern is that the benefit that should have accrued to the ordinary consumer, to the citizen, has not come through. So who do you hold responsible for that? Do you believe that industry hasn't passed on enough?
Let's be very frank. From the first day I was in the GST Council, this is one issue I have been raising. The position taken by the business was, I remember the presentation of Vicky and so on, that competition will take care of the issue. I said, no, it's an oligopolistic market in India, and therefore price determination is not based upon perfect competition.
But it hasn't had an adverse impact on inflation, sir. I mean, you know, the expectation was that perhaps GST would have had an adverse impact on inflation. That hasn't been the case either as well.
Well, one can decompose an exercise of what are the contributions to the inflation India has done by anyone. But that means, say in Kerala, for example, 80% of the commodities used to suffer 14.5% VAT. And now, a comparable number of commodities, the proportion is only 15%.
Okay.
That's the kind of sharp reduction in the incident that has taken place.
Okay.
But suppose the expectation was the gains would be shared with the consumer. And consumers have been cheated. And personally, from I've been involved from GST deliberations right from the late 2000, when it was first introduced in the Empowered Committee.
Yes.
And now, there is going to be constraints on state government resource mobilization, autonomy. But the expectation was that, one, the SGST component, the tax which are not in the interstate trade, you could leave it in a band so that a state government wants to have more resources, they should have the freedom. See, me from Kerala, we have chosen a path of development which is focused upon social sector spending, and which has done us good.
So you're saying it's basically taken away the flexibility and the autonomy of the states to want to be able to raise and mobilize revenues of your own. I'll come back to you in just a second, but let me go across to the Finance Minister of Punjab, Mr. Manpreet Badal. Mr. Badal, Thomas Ayak here saying that the biggest achievement of the GST has been the workings of the GST Council. That has been the single biggest hit as far as he is concerned. What, to your mind, has been the single biggest hit of the GST rollout in the past 1 year and the miss? And I know your list of misses is going to be longer than the list of hits, but I'm hoping you'll start with the hits.
Well, for a start, what the GST Council has done, it's created a fraternity of finance ministers, and we sit together and we share our experiences and best practices of the state. Like last month, I had a team from Punjab actually visit Kerala to study their lottery system. Next week, a team from Punjab is actually going to West Bengal to study their excise policy. So this has been a great experience. Having said that, also the fact that in a very diverse country like India, the fact that we were able to implement the GST, in a country so diverse, I think I would give it an 8 out of 10. And also pay my tribute to Mr. Chidambaram and Pranab Mukherjee Saab and the whole 10 years. But having said that, I feel that, when this was once in a century legislation, where we totally were transforming the tax system from the tax administrator to payer and all. And we were told that we will simplify the whole process. It will give a boost to our economy or GDP, and it will also boost tax revenues. So all three things have not taken place, and when we talk to the stakeholders, there are, everybody, there are irritants basically, and some people actually rejected it outright. And like Mr. Isaac, he said that small businesses have...
Sure, small businesses have suffered. I think there is consensus on that. But if I could dial back to the months or the weeks ahead of the GST rollout, I mean, till the very last day, the consensus was that this is going to be a disaster, that things will fall apart even before it actually takes off. Let's be clear. While there have been teething troubles, there has been pain on the ground as far as SMEs are concerned. There have been technology glitches. There have been issues with respect to filing. Compliance burden has gone up. But the country has moved on, the transition has happened, and things are now moving back to the normal that we were before the 1st of July last year.
Sure. I'm not saying that mistakes, anybody can make mistake. Mistakes are made, and then, but all I'm trying to put across is that we must acknowledge the mistakes, keep our ears to the ground, and we must have an honest feedback from the stakeholders.
Sure.
And once we do that, because my motto is nothing less than perfection in the design and implementation of the GST is acceptable. If India has to become a superpower, and within my lifetime, and I hope I have another 10 years to live, then we must design it in such a way and implement it in such a way. I mean, after all, GST is a tax which is implemented in about 100 other nations of the world. We can actually go to the, what are internationally recognized as taxes. And as long as we are willing to listen to each other, and a spirit of cooperative federalism is taken to the next level, we will, there are 200 changes in the law which are coming up. And if some time is given rather than rush through the legislation, otherwise we're bound to make the same mistake. That's all I'm trying to say.
Fair point. So you're saying that if there were to be further legislative changes which are expected and are on the anvil, you hope that there will be more consultation between states and the centre before those legislations are passed. But let me also then ask you, before I go to Mr. Godino, if you could add to that list of what else you would like to see.
And the stakeholders, not just the state governments.
Fair point. What else you would like to see by way of changes as we now start the journey of GST in year 2? Mr. Badal, can you hear me? Okay, I'll go back to him in just a second. But Mr. Godino, let me come to you, sir.
I'm sorry, I missed your point.
No, I was just asking you to list out for us the 3 things that you believe need to be taken forward as we enter year 2. We'll come back to him. Mr. Godino, let me ask you, sir. I know that you've consistently believed that things will improve when it comes to both revenue collections as well as the compliance burden easing out. We are still waiting for that simplified form. My sense is that it is expected in about between August to October is the timeline that the government is working with at this point in time. But give me a sense of what a state like Goa has experienced in the first year of the rollout and what next can we expect?
I think it's not only Goa, the whole country is impacted by GST, as you know. And if we look at our journey in the last 1 year, I can safely say that during the 1 year, the way it has been implemented, the way GST has worked, it has been a splendid legislation in indirect taxation, which is working very well. And when I say working very well, you look at the collections. Collections are not bad. There were so many pessimists in the beginning who said it will never work, it will crash right in the 3 months' time, 4 months' time.
But sir, let's be honest, collections have been under what you were estimating as well.
Yeah.
You're grudgingly saying yeah, but I mean the fact of the matter is that they have been below what your own estimate was.
No, when you work in a big country like India, and when you know we have lowered the rates, listening to the common man, looking at the common trader, the small businessman, we have taken their opinion into consideration. Wherever it hurts them, we have not hesitated, even though knowing well we will lose revenue, to lower the rates. The emphasis has been to give him, give more relief to the common man. Any country brings any legislation, whether it is financial or otherwise. Ultimately, what is it? We want to have a better system than what was already there. We want to give relief to the businessman. We want to give relief to the common trader. And as I would describe at the end of 1 year, GST, I would call it garibon ka sochne ke baad tax. And I would like to little bit give an
I would little bit tax.
Beg your pardon.
So the good and simple tax has now become garibo ke sochne ke baad wala tax.
Yes, because I would also like to describe that, because we have thought about the common man. You see, food grains are out of the ambit of GST. Items which impact the common man are out of the GST ambit. Those items which are most commonly used even by the middle class and the nation as a whole or the large population, you have the lowest bracketing of tax towards those particular goods. That means we have always thought about the common man. Now, while looking at this, we have to also look at the revenues, we have to look at employment generation, we have to look at investments into infrastructure, into the overall growth and overall buoyancy in the economy as well as the revenues. So many things are to be balanced. One fails, sometimes we fail to realize India is a combination, if I may say so, as I've said it earlier also, a combination of not only 27 states, I call them like it almost becomes like a combination of several countries. The smaller countries, even though in 100 countries we have been able to implement a reform like this, they have been smaller countries with a smaller population. We are so diverse, we have so many diverse views, we have a very healthy and robust democracy where everybody is so robust in his views and expressing those views so strongly, even economically, that you sometimes feel whether consensus will arise. But to the credit of the GST Council, though people belong to different political parties, they thought about India as one country at that point of time. I want to compliment every political party. And this is something which has to be applauded. Normally, I would say this type of spirits builds up during wars and when all Indians unite. But here was one reform where all Indians united. Why don't we look at that? And to take these decisions also, you need guts. You need out-of-the-box thinking. You really need to take a risk in your economy. our leader, that is, means whether Narendra Modi ji has taken this risk in the, risking his political, so many things politically.
Okay.
It's not so easy. On the back of demonetization, you have the GST being introduced, and it's still working at the end of 1 year. Though now, obviously, opinions will slightly change. They will be tempered because of the coming Lok Sabha elections. It's bound to be that way.
No,
it has to be that way.
What does that mean?
It is democracy working at its best. So
No,
I would
but I want to
grant it
understand
to
what
the
that
people who would
statement means.
contest those
So we
opinions.
shouldn't expect anything more now on the GST till the Lok Sabha elections are over and done with?
No, I said there are always dynamic situations. They need a dynamic response, and our government is dynamic enough, taking everybody on board to take those right decisions, which will further simplify GST and make it easier for the businessmen and the community at large to sort of dwell themselves into the GST regime.
Well, Mr. Singh, let me come to you now, because the GST Council signs off on the decisions, and it is the CBIC that has to ensure that those decisions are actually executed on the ground. Give me a sense of what the experience has been from an administration and execution point of view. What have been the highs and the lows, sir?
Well, I would like to inform that Central Board of Excise and Customs, now it is Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, under the Department of Revenue and Ministry of Finance, is responsible for implementing GST in the country in coordination with the state governments. Last 1 year, after 1st July 2017, till now, we are almost completing 1 year. I can tell you honestly, it has been a journey, roller coaster ride. We have been in thick of implementing GST, and after 1 year of implementation, I can say with certain amount of satisfaction that it has been a great success.
Okay.
We are aware that there have been glitches, there have been concerns, there have been issues, but our officers, central government officers, and state government officers under Finance Secretary have been always willing to listen to the grievances, the concerns of the taxpayers. We have been going out to the taxpayers. We have been holding outreach programs.
Right.
Yesterday only I was in Guwahati. I can tell you one simple thing, e-way bill. I mean, there is a lot of discussion on e-way bill. Just for the sake of example, I can say, I was talking to transporters there. They were telling that one truck from Delhi to Guwahati, it used to take 15 days. The expenditure, accounted, non-accounted, whatever, used to be 20,000 rupees for one truck.
Okay.
The 20,000 rupees has gone. There is no expenditure, and the truck reaches within 7 days. All barriers on the state barriers, they have vanished overnight. This is the greatest achievement. If some research or some, study can be done, how much, petrol or diesel we are saving on the trucks. There used to be, 36 hours, 48 hours, queue for miles together on the borders just to cross the borders, show your papers, and enter in the other state. Now, if you start from Kanyakumari, go to Kerala, if you have e-way bill, which you can generate yourself, there is no interaction with the state government officers or central government officers, and you can just flash the e-way bill number, and you can just pass through. Nobody is going to check you. It is the greatest relief to the transporters, to the taxpayers.
Okay, so you're saying, one, in terms of, doing away with the checkposts and the barriers, that's improved the ease of doing business as well as brought down the cost, especially from a logistics point of view. You said that you believe that at the end of 1 year, you can satisfactorily say the GST rollout has been a success. What are the other metrics that you would like to share with us on why you believe it's been a success?
It has been a great success. Revenue-wise, you can say, for the month of March, April, we collected more than 1,03,000 crore.
But you also caveated that by saying that we don't expect the 1 lakh crore number to be a trend just yet. Do you feel more confident about that now?
It will come. Next year we collected 94,000 crore. It's not a small amount. It's increasing. And, it is all doubting Thomases who were saying that, revenue will fall down. It's nothing of the sort happening. Actually, it's going up. And we are taking measures. Even now, we are conscious of the facts of the problems of the people. We are conscious of the problems which the taxpayers are facing. Our officers, state government officers and CBIC officers are deployed every nook and corner of the country. Small places we have range offices. Our commissioners are sitting in faraway places like Aizawl and Imphal. And, they are always willing, they are ready, they are available, they are accessible to listen to the grievances of the taxpayers and solve those problems. We have a very robust mechanism to address those problems. We have various committees.
What are you most concerned about today? You gave me a long list of why you believe the rollout has been successful. What are you most concerned about even today?
Well, one thing which is bothering us is the compliance from the taxpayers. We, being in India, everybody knows, I don't want to mince words, we are hesitant to pay taxes as Indians, right? So it is a great challenge to bring the people, to convince them that if you pay tax, it makes life easy for you.
So now are you going to make life difficult?
If they don't pay taxes, if they want to avoid taxes, they make life difficult for themselves. They are doing great harm to the nation also. We have mechanism to convince them, and we are trying continuously to convince them.
Are you running out of patience, or do you still have more patience? My question is very pointed. Are we now going to see some serious enforcement measures coming into play? Vanija Sarna said that we'll wait to use the danda, but has the time now come to use the danda is the question.
Shireen, we don't want to use the word that we'll use danda. But as you will agree with me, we'll run out of patience. Right?
You have run out of patience.
We will.
You will, okay.
I mean, so there are, there are methods, there are means just to convince the taxpayers, and it is for their benefit. I mean, if you pay taxes, you do the compliance, life is much more easier for you. You can have a very sound sleep in the night.
Right.
If you're otherwise, it is difficult for you. And
so that's a very clear message coming in from the CBIC. Before I throw it open to the audience, let me go back again to Mr. Isaac and Mr. Badal. Mr. Isaac, let me start by asking you, now in terms of next steps, in terms of priorities, the next meeting of the GST Council, we understand, is on the 21st. It's likely to be on video conference. The meetings that happen over video conference don't really take any substantive decisions, so I don't know what is going to come off that meeting. But what can we realistically expect now in terms of priority areas, in terms of the decisions that could be taken over the next few months?
Well, I am not looking for changes. I want things to settle down.
You don't want any more changes?
No, changes will have to come, but let us settle down. Not every time you meet, you change your rate, or you bring in that, bring in this. Instead of that, we have undertaken a number of measures. Let it stabilize. Let the forms come. Let the e-way will become effective. And so on and so forth. And let's see the outcome. And then we'll have a considered view of the thing, rather than knee-jerk reaction to
no knee-jerk reaction. I'll ask you a pointed question. Since Kerala was the first state to actually bring down the VAT on petrol and diesel to provide relief to consumers, do you believe that in earnest there is likely to be a decision on bringing petroleum products under the ambit of the GST?
There is such a simple, direct way of tackling it. The whole issue is that the last 4 years excess duty has been hiked from 200 to 300%. Just roll it back. Issue solved. Now you are talking about GST, just a council, consensus reach, and so on and so forth, deliberately delaying things. Roll back the excess duty hike. The issue is 3/4 solved. And we can certainly discuss how to bring it to GST. There's a compensation law. States will have to be compensated. And that's going to be a big issue, how it is going to be compensated. That's such a huge amount. Therefore, I am saying there is a simple, direct way of tackling the petroleum price hike, roll back the increase in the excise duty. That's our position.
Okay, Mr. Badal, let me come to you, sir. Those are the priority areas as far as Mr. Isaac is concerned. Let there be stability. Don't tinker. Let there not be any knee-jerk reaction. What would you believe should be the focus areas as we start year two?
Yes, first of all, my apologies because I momentarily lost the audio part of it, and
It's
so
like
I could
the
not be
GST
part of this
answer.
discussion.
But we did get it back on track.
Honorable, Honorable Minister from Goa, and just a small reaction there, but that for your listeners, that 5 of the biggest states of India collect 50% of the tax, and the bottom 15 collect 10% of it. So it was a great sacrifice, when food grains, like a state like Punjab, where 40% of our tax base was just based on food grains, which was subsumed. So all I want to say is that this great sacrifice should not go in vain. There is always room for improvement, and there is a lot of headroom. We should not pat ourselves on the back saying that, we've done wonderfully, this is good. I'm told that the GDP or the economy is growing at 6-7% every year, but I don't see this kind of buoyancy in tax growth. So obviously there is something wrong with either
have you hit the 14% number?
Said, in terms of compliance.
Mr. Badal, have you in Punjab hit the 14% number?
No, ma'am, because as I said, that if 40% of your tax base has been subsumed, we are left with just 60% of our tax base. So 40% and a 14%, you cannot expect a state to grow at 60%. That's impossible. So at the moment, Punjab is in a compensation state, and I'm actually worried that post 2022, how are we going to run this state? Because if such a large part of your tax base is actually subsumed in the GST. So, in fact, in the GST Council, we've been asking the GST Council and Mr. Arvind Subramaniam, unfortunately he left, that if you can do a case study for Punjab.
Okay.
So, what Punjab actually wants is, and this is no secret, that right from the Kashmir meeting, there were certain issues, whether it was from the textile sector, job workers. States were consistently asking Government of India and giving suggestions. At that time, there seemed to be a certain degree of arrogance that no, we know best. They were not listened to. Came the November elections, and then the whole thing went into overdrive, trying to rectify it. And I agree with Dr. Isaac that let things settle down, but keep listening to the states and the stakeholders.
Okay.
And if you do that, we will be able to perfect it.
Okay. Mr. Singh, let me put that point that we just heard there from Mr. Badal. And, I had a conversation with the West Bengal Finance Minister, Amit Mitra, yesterday, and he was pretty much echoing the same, that there are issues that state governments are facing on the revenue front, and this compensation picture may in fact, while 5 years is committed and guaranteed by the centre, that this may in fact have to continue as well beyond that. There is no constitutional guarantee to that. But what's your own sense about the revenue story and, the point that we just heard there from Mr. Badal as well?
We must remember one thing, that India is a big and diverse country. Every state has different problems. The problem which is in Punjab may not be in Kerala or West Bengal or Odisha. They have, like UP, there is a problem about sugarcane farmers.
Yeah.
In Kerala, it may be about coconut. There are different problems in different states. But government has promised that for 5 years, they'll be compensated with 14% growth. And 5 years is a long period in which things can stabilize. They can find ways to increase their revenue. And ultimately, things will be definitely better.
Okay, but as Mr. Badal was pointing out, do you believe that some states will require some specific solutions? For instance, a state like Punjab, where a substantial portion of the tax base has been subsumed by the GST.
Yeah, states have opportunity to raise their concerns in the GST Council. Honorable ministers of the states, they are raising issues. It is not that they are just brushed under the carpet.
Yeah.
They are discussed, they are deliberated, and solutions are found. That is why all 27 meetings of the GST Council, all decisions have been unanimous. It is not the majority rule or minority rule and all that. You know, discussions take place, and out of the discussion, best solution, even for states,
Yeah.
it is found, it is acceptable, and it has been happening. On the other hand, Badal Sahab, what he has said, that we should listen to the stakeholders. We have been listening to the stakeholders. All our issues are given wide publicity.
Okay.
We have been holding meetings with the tax holders. We have been getting feedback. We have structure of getting feedbacks, taking action on that. In all our committees, law committee, our IT committee, our single interface committee, we have officers from the state governments and the central government.
Yeah.
They have detailed discussions, and
Okay.
after discussions, issues are referred to the GST Council where decisions are taken.
Okay, let me throw this to the audience. If anybody has a question, please raise your hand. I will get the microphone across to you. Anybody here with a question? Arun? Yes, okay. Let me come across to you.
My question is to Mr. Thomas. Arun Giri from Taxutra. Sir, it's been the biggest achievement has been cooperative federalism, but would you say that the fact that all the finance ministers had to sit together, thrash out a consensus, and therefore even going forward this will be more of a political tax rather than economic tax, that politics will drive the decision, sir? Will that be the pattern for the next couple of years as well?
Well, this is a tradition that has been built up since the Empowered Committee started functioning for VAT. In VAT, there was no constitutional amendment, and therefore it was even harder task to get everybody to agree to a common positions. And still we managed to do that. So this tradition has continued. That's something very positive and good. And I would give a lot of credit to the Union Finance Minister, Arun Jaitley, as a way of getting along with everyone. So I hope this approach will continue. That's very, very important, see. Particularly in a time, say, now the minority is a very small minority on many issues in the council. Still, nevertheless, Union Finance Minister wouldn't ignore such a minority, would still try to continue the dialogue and come to an understanding.
Okay.
And there is a spirit of give and take. As I told you, there are issues and positions which cannot be compromised. But stating these differences, still one can work together. So I think this approach is very, very important to continue.
Okay.
And for example, the latest one, the cess on sugar and digital incentive.
Both which have not been cleared yet.
I'm very certain the union government was very keen on having that. But there was a very strong minority who said, no, this affects the basic structure of GST.
Yeah.
You have a cess, then it is not VATable, and it creates problems and so on. And you have a principle, tax must not be used to incentivize.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something agreed upon, so it should not be done. And therefore, no decision has been made. We have postponed it. We had 2 meetings. Perhaps we'll continue the discussions. I think that's a correct approach.
Okay, Mr. Godino, let me put that point to you, because this is a contentious issue where a decision is still pending, both on incentivizing digital transactions as well as the need at all for a sugar cess. You know, the point is that for 5,000 or 6,000 crore rupees, which is what you were hoping to accrue by way of the sugar cess, why would you want to distort the very architecture of the GST? And this was something that the centre was pushing, and states like Kerala, West Bengal, Delhi were opposing. Is there now a political call, because we haven't seen any forward movement, but is there a political call not to press ahead with additional cesses like the sugar cess?
See, one thing is, every decision that has been taken by consensus, with due regard to even the so-called minority view. respecting everybody's view. And since a strong pitch was made by certain people that these two issues cannot be decided by the council or cannot be decided, we did respect that in the council. It is yet to come before the council, but the committee that was formed and the government itself had respect to that, and it has remained pending. And even if a decision has to emerge in the near future, it will be only after taking everybody on board. It will be a consensus. There will not be majority minority. One can be sure about that. And that is how we have worked out out of very difficult situations sometimes. Another point I want to make, what Mr. Badal was making, is one should not forget that we are only in the first year. End of the first year, we are evaluating everything. Everything cannot be expected to settle down to the extent everyone desires.
Yeah.
I know there are going to be certain heartburns. There are going to be sacrifices made. Some will make a little more sacrifices, some may make a little less. But ultimately, it is one nation, one tax. Let us think of the country, which we have now started thinking. And we have really started thinking in a manner that we have to work this out and let us have a truly good consensus. And that is what we have tried to build in the GST, and which we have succeeded so far. And I have great hope that even in the future we'll succeed in the same manner.
Okay. Mr. Badal, talking about the impact as far as the economy is concerned, and as Mr. Godino rightfully pointed out, 1 year is too early to assess the implementation impact of the GST. But all kinds of numbers were bandied about. It will add another 2 to 3% to the GDP and so on and so forth. What is your own assessment on what the GST so far has been able to deliver on in terms of cost optimization, in terms of supply chain efficiency, and all of that will eventually start to be factored into the economy. So what, to your mind, has been the assessment on those fronts?
Well, you know what Honorable Minister from Goa said, and I would agree with him that politics is not a boxing match or a wrestling match. Politics is that without compromising on your principles, you find a way forward.
It's become a shouting match, hasn't it? At least in
GST
television studios.
And the Congress Party in Punjab, we were... No. We would not like to think it that way. And, we are part of the same nation, and you don't cut your nose to spite your face. And all the stakeholders, and we are part of the stakeholders, we are the stakeholders, and we hope that it succeeds. But all I'm trying to say is that one should not be satisfied. There is room for improvement, and I think it's doable as long as we put our heads together, and we will be able to achieve it. As I said, just the fact that it was implemented is 8 out of 10, but the way we implemented it, it was 2 out of 10.
8 on 10 and 2 on 10 for implementation. Well, I guess somewhere in the middle is where the mood of the audience will find its sort of resting place. But we're out of time, Mr. Badal. I know you, Urdu couplets is something that you're passionate about. If you could give us an Urdu couplet, sir, that sums up the mood of the GST Council and the experience in the past 1 year.
Well, there's a very famous couplet from Iqbal, but I'm afraid people in India, they don't understand Urdu anymore. But it's my favorite, and I think this should be apt for the occasion. And he says ki husne tadbir se jaag uthta hai qaumo ka naseeb. Husn is beautiful and tadbir is planning. With good planning, you can actually change the fate of nations. He says, husne tadbir se jaag uthta hai qaumo ka naseeb. Kabhi badalti nahi takdeer armanon se. Just by wishing, you don't change. It has to be good planning, and I hope God gives us the good sense to plan better for this.
Well, that is the perfect note to end this conversation. Manpreet Badal, Thomas Isaac, Mr. Singh, and Movin Godino, thank you very much for joining us here on the GST Decoded Conclave. Appreciate your time, and we wish all of you the very best of luck as we start the journey for year 2. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our panelists here this evening.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Shireen. Well, we are also...